have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait to next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how do you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast.
Welcome to the Vipercast, powered by the Fantasy Points Media Group, and this is episode 122. And as always, I am joined by Major Caldwell, who's looking fresh tonight. How you doing, Major?
I'm doing good, man. Just happy to make it here. It was like, remember that Hertz commercial when OJ was jumping through the airport? It was kind of like that going on with me a little bit today, so it's all good.
That's more than fair enough there. I mean, things got crazy to me today at the hockey rink there. We're taking our ice out, had the Zamboni going. But on today's show, you can find our guest on the corner of Moody Field and possibly even the Pizza Hut buffet. He is a writer and on-air talent at ESPN, a proud member of the Fantasy Sports Writers Association. He contributes fantasy and sports betting, football, basketball analysis across platforms in a triple threat style. That's writing, that's audio, and that's video content. His work includes columns for ESPN Fantasy, PFN, The Athletic, 4for4, RotoViz, Fantasy Pros, Fantasy Data, Gridiron Experts, Rotoballer, DLF. Woo! Please welcome to the show, Eric Moody. How you doing, Eric?
No, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's I was sitting there thinking as you were saying that, Matt. You're like, I know what? That's a great hype man and intro. I may have to pull you with me to other podcasts and shows. You know, that was impressive. I love it.
Matt is good at a lot of things, but the thing that he shines is his intros and outros. That man is a master at it.
I love it. It's great. But no, things are going very, very well. You know, as I say, you've got a activity. The draft's coming up. March Madness. Great time of the year as always, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
You know what? I'm not a big basketball guy, but every March Madness, that gets me. I get hooked to my TV. I'm a Tar Heels fan, so this has been a nice little surprise for me, a little happy. You know, that 8th seed going to the Final Four, the Duke matchup coming up. I mean, as a college basketball fan, what more can you really ask for than Duke and Carolina, outside of maybe Duke losing, because no one outside of Duke cheers for Duke. Let's be honest. They are the Dallas Cowboys. They are the New York Yankees. That's who Duke is. Nobody likes Duke except Dukies or whatever they call the Cameron Crazies.
The
But
Dookie
when I
is
go
fun.
through that, we all do it for the Dookie? No? Okay.
Hey, I understood
there,
the
Eric.
reference. I understood it. I understood that reference.
Yeah, there you go.
I read this list here: ESPN Fantasy, PFN, The Athletic, so on and so forth. Is there anything you haven't done? I mean, that's kind of, if you're getting into this fantasy football business, if you're getting into sports media, these are some of the biggest names in our industry when it comes to that. And you've had the opportunity to collaborate and work with.
Wait, hold on, Matt.
all
I
these.
think you forgot to list that he was a frequent flyer in my clubhouse room during the clubhouse days. So you have to put that in his intro somewhere, man. That was a big deal.
I mean, that's like literally talk about like the Boston, I don't know, Redskins or something. I mean, Clubhouse it may have existed, but it was gone.
Hey, it was a lot of good things that came out of that, though.
It was.
This show being one of them, like us hooking up. So come on.
Well, did I miss anything when I was talking about all those areas that you've contributed to? Like, what haven't you done in this space?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on quite a few. I know the first website I wrote for Fantasy Football Locker Room is no longer in existence. So I know that's something I haven't had on my profile in many, many years. But yeah, I think you summarized it very, very well.
All right. Well, now that we've got that out of the way, we need to get into the contractually obligated football talk. And we've had a pretty interesting offseason so far to date.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've now seen the number one quarterback get signed by the New Orleans Saints there in Andy Dalton. So that's some big news right there.
Red Rifle.
The Red Rifle. He's going down to the bayou to let it loose there. I mean, So I can't even take myself serious with that one. But hey, you know what? Let's talk about some of the more improved teams out there from what you've seen through the free agency period. What are some of the more improved teams right now?
Ooh, I really like that question. I know one team that came to mind. It wasn't really any for fantasy, any big signings, but I like what the Baltimore Ravens have done. They've addressed like their offensive line, so they've got a new piece there. Michael Pierce came over at safety. Marcus Williams, and so I really like those additions. That they added, and we have Lamar Jackson that's coming back. J.K. Dobbins, hopefully healthy and ready to rock and roll. I really like what they did. And another team that comes to mind, it's definitely more fantasy relevant with some of their additions, was the Buffalo Bills.
When you talk about, I like how the first two teams that you mentioned is most improved, both come out of that AFC. And first off, Baltimore improves just by getting their own guys back. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, they're back there in the backfield. We know what Lamar Jackson can do. This AFC is loaded. Outside of maybe the AFC South, I mean, you've still got Indianapolis. You got Tennessee that's going to still be good. But each division has 3 potential playoff caliber teams, if not more. I mean, how do you break this AFC down? Like, is there a team that you can go, you know what? They're in for sure. They're going to make the playoffs for sure. And is there a team that, we got that group of 12. Now Miami thrown in there. Everyone's kind of down on Vegas, even though they made it there and somehow improved this offseason. They're now out of the playoffs in a lot of people's minds. How do we handicap this AFC from a sports betting angle?
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge with all those teams, because all those teams you mentioned, are contenders. I'm just thinking about the teams like in the AFC. I know I mentioned Buffalo, but they improved in free agency. But like you mentioned, guys they've re-signed and new additions. Obviously, Cincinnati, that's another team that improved. They already have a plethora of offensive playmakers, but then when they address, their offensive line, that's obviously not only going to help Joe Burrow, but also going to help the running game as well. And I do like the addition of, tight end Hayden Hurst. With the Browns, too, they made some really good additions. It's outside of Deshaun Watson. You got Amari Cooper, and you got, a key re-signing, David Njoku. And so it's just so many heavy hitters that are there. And so the way I would approach it, at least for right now, we'll see what happens with the draft, is obviously look at the odds, to see who's positioned to win that conference according to Vegas. And I would go with the high upside pick that's kind of in that middle tier. I haven't looked at the odds. It's been about a week. I don't know if they've changed or fluctuated, but that's the approach that I would take, like a contender that's in the middle that can elevate themselves up to the top. But yeah, it's going to be a battle royale, though.
Yeah, we got into the winners. I think you hurt Matt's feelings a little bit because he's our Raider fan here, so he was hoping you were gonna give Raiders a little more love than what you did. But
I can do that because I'll go for it because I've been adamant. I love the additions that the Raiders have made. I'm just thinking, obviously the big one is Devontae Adams. He's a guy that I still see as like an elite wide receiver 1. I don't see his situation like as a downgrade. Everyone knows his body of work over the last 4 seasons. He leads the NFL, 432 receptions, 5,310 receiving yards, and 47 receiving touchdowns. Like, this is a dude that's averaged 22 fantasy points per game in like 57 active games over that time frame. I think you pair Adams with a guy like Derek Carr, and I don't think it will be wise to underestimate the rapport that those two have. They played together at Fresno State from 2012 to 2013. Between them, they scored like 39 touchdowns, racked up 3,037 yards, most touchdowns of any FBS combo during that time frame. And I'll bring all that together with this. I think they're a contender. I like the additions that they've made. They're going to look good on the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball. But here, just think about this. You got Josh McDaniels, too, an offensive-minded head coach is there. But I'll leave you with this stat and pass the baton back to you. Like, the last time a Raiders receiver had scored more than 269.4 fantasy points was back in the year 2000. That trend's obviously going to change with Devontae Adams as part of that team. Obviously, it's a great impact for Carr, who is in a really good position to finish as a QB1. I think one area that's eluded him when you look at his through a fantasy lens is that in the area of touchdowns. I think that's something where Devontae Adams can obviously help him quite a bit. So just to make Matt feel better, I'm a huge Raiders guy. I like what they've done. I think they're going to have a marvelous season.
I like that. We talked about this last time about all the wide receivers who are finding new homes with quarterbacks and stuff like that. That Adams Carr, that's something that they work together in the offseason most of the time. They get together, they're friends, this and that. I don't think that can be underestimated going into 2022. That chemistry they still have. It's not, they haven't played since 2013. Well, no, they've kind of hung out together in the offseason each and every year here.
Absolutely.
And we talk about, so we know the Raiders are improved. We know the Cleveland Browns are improved. I mean, a lot of these teams have improved. Some of them, maybe not so much. Like a couple. I mean, I don't think the Chargers or the Raiders were complaining about Tyreek Hill leaving the division, leaving the Chiefs. But what are some of these other teams that maybe are the least improved going into 2022 at this point?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of teams that really come to mind. I know one. I'm just thinking like NFC East. I'm like the Giants. They didn't really make many key additions. They've got Matt Breida. I do like Ricky Seals-Jones being added, but they're a team that didn't really improve. And obviously with the Saints, I know their situation's different just with their management of the cap, but they didn't really make any big moves. I will tell you one in the AFC that really disappointed me. We'll see if they can redeem themselves in the draft, but like the New England Patriots, they really need to get Mac Jones some offensive playmakers, especially receivers, but they didn't really make any major additions. And so I was really surprised at that. Also wasn't a big fan of the additions that Minnesota had, the Vikings. So those are some teams that immediately come to mind.
Yeah, I think the New England's going to build through the draft. I think they're going to try to build that way this time with the franchise. But they never really been too free agent friendly. They usually the one getting rid of guys, So
yeah,
we'll see how that goes. But which player helped themselves the most in free agency this year, you think, for fantasy?
For fantasy, which player helped themselves the most? Does it have to be a free agent signing, or could it just be a change?
Go for it.
We're flexible here.
Okay, all right. So I would say one name that immediately popped into my mind is Russell Wilson. I like inserting him like in a Broncos team. I'm like, you look at Wilson now; he has I would go as far as to say the best, youngest, like deepest group of targets like in the league. I'm like, he's got Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and who'll also have Tim Patrick. KJ Hamler's there. I think of with a guy like Wilson, he's going to help that team out tremendously, and he can obviously be valued as like a QB1. I would say with top 5 like upside. One thing with Denver, with getting Wilson, it's that they've been a dumpster fire, since Peyton Manning, played for them. And Denver's finished like 21st or worse in the league in passing touchdowns in each of the past 6 seasons. I think that is obviously going to change with Russell Wilson as there. He's going to elevate the entire offense. I think the defense will feed off of that too, because they've got a quarterback who has a Super Bowl pedigree and can take that team to the promised land. So for fantasy, I love Wilson. He's my dark horse to finish the overall QB1.
The Broncos have been basically essentially a quarterback away for, like you said, since the Peyton Manning time. They've always had a good defense. The weapons there, I mean, you go back even before Wilson came there. Noah Fant was there, Sutton, Jeudy, Tim Patrick, favorite of this show here. Much respect to Timmy Patrick. Yep. I mean, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. I mean, the offense is loaded. The defense has been pretty good in the years past. They should be above average heading into 2022.
Yeah,
so those are some nice little.
Is Melvin
that AFC West is that?
Is Melvin back?
He still hasn't signed yet, as of yet.
Yeah. TBD on that one.
Okay.
As a Javonte Williams manager, having him on your roster, and having Melvin Gordon still not signed, and having the Broncos still not bring in a veteran back, does that not worry you somewhat that Melvin Gordon could be returning, and we could be seeing another one of those 50-50 split shares in that backfield?
Yeah, it would be something that would be a concern because it does cap Williams' ceiling, at least on the outside looking in. That's a thought that you would have, but it could be one of those scenarios for where let's say if they do bring Gordon back and they're just like, they'll just be transparent. We don't know the conversations that are going on in the locker room. It could be as simple as this. It's like, hey, Melvin, hey, we want to have you back, but hey, I'm going to be transparent with you. Javonte Williams is the future. He's our guy. But I still think he's positioned for success, because if they really wanted Gordon to be there, they would have closed the deal already. So I'm still optimistic. I think Javonte Williams is going to finish like as an RB1 potentially, especially with Wilson at the helm.
So then, just to kind of go back here, we talked about those players who have moved and relocated, who have benefited. Who are some of those players that have stayed on their team and had pieces built around them, a la Tungavaloa, a la Derek Carr? Who's maybe the most beneficial player right now to these free agent moves? Or trades?
I would say it's two names that I would touch on that immediately come to mind. You mentioned with Tua. I love the addition of Tyreek Hill. I know people view it as like a downgrade. I still believe Tyreek Hill can finish like as a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. So Dolphins made a big splash publicly, obviously, with that move. But I think subconsciously, it's also telling Tua that, hey, we believe in you. You're our franchise quarterback. We're going to build some offensive playmakers around you to help you, to put you in the best possible position to succeed. Then when you have a guy like, like Tyreek Hill that's there, you got Jalen Waddle. You've got a new head coach in Mike McDaniel who likes to really take advantage of receivers' ability to get yards after the catch. Obviously, no one is better in the league than doing that than Hill. So I'm really excited to see what Tua does. Now, another name that I think has been really not under the radar. It's just people haven't really talked about it as much as I would have thought they would. Is that you've got Leonard Fournette. He obviously re-signed with the Buccaneers once Tom Brady's like, hey, I'm back. And he immediately signed after that. You got Ronald Jones, who's taking his talents elsewhere to Kansas City. I really like Fournette. I think he's in a great spot. I think Tua's in a great spot as well.
That's some great info. Who's a player we're not talking about that still may be a free agent out there that we keep our eyes on?
You guys have any players that immediately come to mind?
I know when I was stalking you on Twitter there, I know Jarvis Landry was definitely a name that came up on the Twitter on the timeline.
Landry, OBJ. Is OBJ signed yet?
No, he's Go ahead, Matt. You're good.
Yeah, OBJ, he hasn't signed yet, but I'm pretty confident we have an idea he's going to sign. Teams know they're going to bring him in. It's just about getting that injury kind of taken care of. Make sure we know where that's at. He's going to have a market. It's going to probably develop a little bit later. And the longer Beckham Jr. waits, I think the market's going to get even more teams involved on that. I mean, even after the draft, I think we see that kick out, especially for all these wide receivers and these running backs that we see right now in the free agent market. After the draft, I think we're going to see a little bit more movement. But I know Odell, he's had talks with several teams. I know the Rams want to bring him back. I mean, that means that looks like a natural fit. I mean, it's about the dollars and cents there, too, now that they got Allen Robinson.
I heard that he's maybe going back to Cleveland, right? I heard some rumblings of that too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of how these things fall. I'm like, you got OBJ, he's still kind of undecided. You mentioned Jarvis Landry too. Just giving his body of work. I'm like, he's been solid. Rob Gronkowski, most likely he'll end up signing with the Buccaneers to kind of finish out his career, with Brady. But I know Julio's a name that's out there, veteran name. Emmanuel Sanders. Of course, Will Fuller. We'll see if he'll reunite with Deshaun Watson. I know those are some names that come to mind. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see.
And then speaking of interesting to see, we've seen how a good portion of this offseason has played out. Who are some of those players right now that you're looking to add in fantasy to your rosters right now? Like, are there guys that you're like, I need to go get this guy? Or you know what, his values kind of dipped to a point where I think I could bring him in at a reasonable cost.
Or we're just looking for dynasty, kind of like buy low candidates, that type of thing.
Some buy low guys, or some, you know what, it might be a player out there. You know what, I don't care. I see Devontae Adams. He's hooking up with Derek Carr. I'll pay everything I can to get Devontae Adams on my roster. Is there a guy like that where you're not afraid to absolutely sell the farm to bring into onto your team?
Yeah, I can't think of any players that would necessarily sell the farm like 4. I'm just trying to think of some names. I'm just thinking like from
Christian
thinking
Kirk.
kind of dynasty.
Christian Kirk.
Yeah, that could be
I
one. I'm
made a
like,
pretty wild deal for him recently,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to
Mhm.
see if you would back me up on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with Kirk. I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, they're going to they paid Christian Kirk all this money, but it's just like I'm like, we haven't seen Christian Kirk's like ceiling. I say this often is that like
Thank
in
you.
fantasy, so many people like think of it this way: we don't drive our cars by like looking in the rear view mirror while we're driving the entire time. We're
Mm.
gonna look straight ahead. And Christian Kirk's coming off a season where he had a career highs. He was operating from the slot, and so he'll have that similar role like in Jacksonville with an up and coming quarterback and Trevor Lawrence. So, I think he's going to be fine. I think he'll
And
set
a
new
new
career
coach.
highs. Yeah, new coach, so he's not part of the dysfunction that is Urban Meyer and everything he touches. But that's a
There
whole
you
other
go,
conversation
Matt.
for another day.
What do you say to that, Matt?
When I say that, the point of dynasty fantasy football is to acquire good players, Major.
I got a name. I got a name for you. Okay. All right. This is a guy that I would say aggressively target, and it would be Terry McLaurin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a guy. He's subpar quarterback play. Now, I would say make no mistake. It's that Carson Wentz is not like elite, but I'll tell you one thing. But he is the best quarterback that Terry McLaurin will play with. And on top of that, Carson Wentz, I read some articles for where he's been like an admirer of Terry McLaurin like for years. So I know those are some names. I'm trying to think of some other ones. There was one that came into my mind, but then I ended up it slipped away from me. I've got it, and then I'll kind of pass the baton back to you, gentlemen. I would say Michael Pittman. I like the season he had last year. He had a career season. With Commander Carson. Had to get that in there some kind of way. But he's got a quarterback in Matt Ryan. And I'll be kidding. Matt Ryan had an awful season last year. But if you look at his overall like statistical body of work, it's really it's really promising.
Is there anything left in the tank though? Is there anything left in the tank? You think?
Oh no, I think so. With the supporting cast that he has in Indianapolis, I'm like he's at the stage of his career, and he never was that guy that can like elevate everyone on the team. He's not that type of quarterback. He needs that supporting cast, and more so now now than ever. But his playmakers are most improved, and I'll tell you, the Colts used play action 31% of the time last season, which is the third highest rate in the league. He's got Jonathan Taylor there, arguably, one of the, the top, running backs in the league right now. And so I think if they leverage the running game, obviously Pittman's going to be a target monster and really leverage that play action passing game. Because if you look at Matt Ryan, I'm like, it was night and day last season when he operated out of play action compared to when he didn't. And so I think Pittman's in line to have a really big season. And I just don't think many people have been talking about the addition of Matt Ryan on how that'll positively impact Pittman. So there you go. I'll kind of close on that. Those are some names.
Hey, Pittman's a good way to close out on because I've been touting him for quite a while. Put some respect on Matty Ice's name, Major. Come on.
Yeah.
The dude's been sacked more than any other quarterback the last 4 years.
Old slow quarterbacks get no love over here. If you're old and you're slow and your arm is a little noodly,
there ain't nothing wrong with that arm. He's got like the second or third best downfield completion percentage last year. And who was he? He had no one to throw to.
I mean, I didn't see Pitt. He had Pitts. He had the number one prospect since like Jesus. Like, you know what I mean?
He didn't have to come really though, because he was kind of off doing his thing. So that obviously hurt too. So
off placing a little bet here and there. It's all good.
I love that. And I think if Indianapolis can go out there and get themselves another field stretcher, a Will Fuller type guy, maybe Julio back with Matt Ryan in Indianapolis to go with Michael Pittman. I mean, I think that offense can be dangerous because you're going to see a lot of single man coverage there with, especially with Jonathan Taylor, because they're going to be stacking the boxes because we know what Jonathan Taylor can do. Oh yeah. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield too from time to time. So
absolutely. Indianapolis
is one of those teams I think is, we talk about these teams that most improved, and you look at these again. Indianapolis, not a playoff team last year. definitely a playoff caliber team. Cleveland, not a
Absolutely.
playoff team, definitely another team that could be making the run. Pittsburgh, maybe the team that drops out of that we can kind of feel comfortable with. But you look around this, the Chargers were the other team that didn't make the playoffs, and a lot of people have them guaranteed to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's going to shape out, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident I'm going to have a heart attack or two along the way, but I'm going to enjoy it.
It's gonna be fun.
Hey, if you are watching us right now, head over to fantasypoints.com, enter promo code Vipers22 and get 10% off that subscription today. Hey, we don't just talk about football over at Fantasy Points. We have golf going down right now too as well. So a one-stop shop for all your off-season needs there when it comes to fantasy sports.